everyone, Kathy here, and welcome back to my channel. If I could summarize today's podcast in just a few words, I would say that hardship can lead to bravery, and it is okay to feel angry, sad, happy, content, strong, or weak, as long as we remain ourselves. Always. Today, we will talk to Terry Tucker, a kind and brave American man who decided that love, friendship, and family would always prevail over his cancer, his amputation, and his physical pain. Good morning, Terry. Thank you so much for being with us today. How are you doing?
I'm good, Kathy. How are you?
I'm doing really well. So today we will be talking to Terry Tucker, and I'm very, very excited because Terry Tucker to me is the perfect example of the hero, the person that you don't see on TV and on the radio, but he is the man who is an everyday hero. He's a survivor, he's a fighter, he's a mentor. I'm so excited to be with you today. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we start, I would like you to give me a little bit of background, where you were born, when you graduated and what you graduated in, and just like some kind of, who are you, Terry? I would like to know, please.
I'd like to know too sometimes. Believe me, I understand exactly where you're coming from. So I was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and I am the oldest of three boys. It's hard to know from my voice, but I'm 6'8". And I played basketball in college, and I have a brother who is 6'7", who was a pitcher at Notre Dame. And then I have another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. And then my dad was 6'5". So if you sat behind our family in church growing up, it wasn't a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on. It was just one of those things. And I have no sisters, so it was all boys. And I have a daughter. My wife and I have a daughter. It's our only child. And I remember when we were, do you want to know the sex of the child? And I'm so, oh, sure. And it's like, well, it's going to be a girl. And I'm like, no, you need to keep it in there until it turns into a boy, because I don't know what to do with a girl. But that worked out fine.
Is your daughter tall?
She is. She's 6'2". And she plays basketball, and she actually went to college at the United States Air Force Academy. So she's a lieutenant in the Air Force now, actually in the Space Force, the new branch of the military that was just created. So we're extremely proud of her. And I always say she got her mother's brains. So I could have never made it through the Air Force Academy. That's definitely for sure.
Your height and her brain.
It goes together. I mean, that makes perfect. Makes perfect.
That's very good. And so, Terry, I was looking at your background, and all the way until 2012, you had what we would consider as the perfect life. You were born in Chicago, you graduated college, you got married, and you went to California, and you had a child, and you were a police officer and a baseball coach. So tell us more. What about that life that you had all the way to 2012, please?
I had a great life. I mean, I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. So I was kind of all set to make my mark on the world with my newly obtained business administration degree. I look back on it like, I didn't know anything. I was kind of a knucklehead, and I graduated long before the internet was available and that. So I moved home to find a job, expecting to, kind of go out on my own. Unfortunately, I spent the next 3.5 years helping my mother take care of my father and my grandmother, who was living with us, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. And I know that was tragic, but it helped me to mature. It helped me to learn quite a bit. So I always wanted to be, as you mentioned, in law enforcement, a police officer, but my dad was dead set against it. So I went to work for Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, right out of college. And then I went to work in a large hospital, met my wife, and we moved to California, as you mentioned. Our daughter was born there. I became a police officer when we moved back to the Midwest to Cincinnati. And then we moved again to Houston, Texas, where I was a basketball coach, and I started a consulting business where I worked with schools to help them improve their security and stuff like that. So I had an absolutely great life up
Amazing.
until 2012 when kind of the bottom fell out a little bit with it.
Before we get to this, I would like to know who you were at the time in your heart. I am talking to you right now. You seem to be so positive, so happy, so fighting. And were you this way before when life was easy, when it was just all given to you? How were you at the time?
Well, I've always been positive. I've never quit anything in my life, but I went to college at the Citadel, which is a military college in South Carolina. And I remember I was getting ready to quit. I thought, this isn't for me.
Uh-huh.
And I was literally walking over. I was there on a basketball scholarship. I was walking over to tell the coaches that I was leaving. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to just check and see if I have any mail. And I had a letter from my father. It was a 7-page handwritten letter, basically telling me that I could do this, that he was proud of me, that I had called home 7 times, and I had never once asked about how anybody at home was doing. So he was basically telling me my priorities were way out of whack and that I needed to concentrate on what was important, get out of my own head, and make this happen. And so I couldn't quit. When you get a letter from your father who's kind of your hero, it's like you can't quit. So whatever got in my way, I was going to find a way to make it work, either work for me, or I was going to get around it or over it or under it or whatever, sometimes through it. So yeah, I've pretty much been positive for most of my life, but I think I've gotten more positive since 2012.
When life became difficult. So now let's get to 2012. And I don't want to say that this is a reason why you and I are talking today, because at the end of the day, I want to bring out the hero that you are. And to me, you are, and you really, truly are.
Thank you.
So, but in order for people to understand why you are a hero to me, we need to go into the painful situation. Can you please tell us what happened to you in 2012?
So as you mentioned, I was kind of just living my life like everybody else was in 2012. And as I mentioned, I was a high school girls basketball coach. And I had a callus that broke open on the bottom of my foot, right underneath my 3rd toe. And I didn't think much of it because I was on my feet a lot. And eventually it didn't heal. I went to see a friend of mine who was a podiatrist, and he gave me some pads to put in my shoes, and that didn't work. And he said, you might have a cyst in there. And so he did. He cut out a cyst. He showed it to him. His little sack had like white fat in it. He's like, I've been doing this for 25 years, seen thousands of these, no big deal. Put a couple stitches in it. You'll be good in 2 weeks, but I'll send this off to pathology. 2 weeks later, I get a call from him. And like I said, he was a friend of mine. I knew him. And when I heard him on the other end and he wasn't able to talk, or he was having a hard time, the more he couldn't talk, the more frightened I got.
You got the voice.
Yeah, I really did. And he basically said, I've been practicing for 25 years. You have cancer, and I've never seen this form of cancer. And it was a rare form of melanoma that presented on the bottom of my foot. I was treated in Houston at the world-renowned MD Anderson Cancer Center, had 2 surgeries.
Can I please cut you off here?
Sure.
Well, I don't want to go too fast. I want to focus on how it felt at that time, because a lot of people who will be listening to us may have cancer.
Sure.
How did you go through that, more than the cancer itself? How did you feel inside your heart and inside your head?
Scared.
Who were you at the time? Scared. And mad, or?
Yeah, mad, scared. I mean, there was a woman many years ago called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she published a book about the 7 steps that people go through when they're dying and things like that. And I think I went through all 7 of them in about 3 minutes. I couldn't believe this. I had done everything right in my life. I exercised, eaten good food. I had a physical every year. Did what my doctor, said to do in terms of testing and stuff like that. I'm like, there's no way that I could have this cancer.
How old were you?
51.
51. So you're very young. Okay.
Yeah, 51. And like I said, I was in good shape. I was always working out. I was like, there's no way I can have this rare form. I mean, only 6,500 people in the United States get my kind of cancer every year. So
So
it's
why
not
me then?
yeah,
You reacted this way. Why me?
not so much why me, but I was just
Uh-huh.
I don't ever think I said why me about it. I just couldn't understand how this was happening because I'd done everything right. And it doesn't matter if you do everything right. Sometimes bad things happen. And I made a decision very early on when I got cancer that I wasn't going to take this out on anybody. I wasn't, because I was having a bad day, I wasn't going to take it out on a nurse or a doctor or a therapist or a neighbor or anybody. I was going to be as positive as I could possibly be with this. Now, don't get me wrong. There were days I wasn't very positive.
Yeah.
There were days that I was in agony and I literally prayed to die. But I, like I said, I'd never quit anything in my life. And in this situation, I didn't have the option of quitting. It wasn't like, well, I don't have to do this. Well,
Yes.
these are the cards that I've been dealt. I have to play those cards. So
Now, getting out of your situation, I would like to know family. What happened to your wife, your daughter, your mother? I'm sure all these people, their worlds started crumbling down all around them. How did they help you, and how did they manage with the mental pain to think that maybe this is it?
yeah, it's a good question. My wife is Norwegian, and so she is really tough. And she took this like a trooper. And our daughter was, I'm going to say 14, 15 years old when I got cancer. And my wife and I made a decision. We said, you know what? We're going to tell her the truth. I mean, obviously age appropriate for what we were going to tell her, but we were never going to lie to her. We were never going to say, dad's great when dad wasn't great or anything like that. And we have stuck to that through almost 9 years now. But I'll give you a story that I think kind of illustrates this kind of concept. I had a surgery to remove all the lymph nodes in my groin, and I had 40 staples that literally went from the inside of my thigh up through my groin up into my abdomen. So we get home, and I managed the 3 steps from the garage into the house with my crutches. And then I get to the stairs going up to the bedroom. I have 7 stairs, a landing, and then 7 more stairs. So I make the first 7 stairs, no problem. But those staples in my groin are pulling and pinching. And literally it feels like my groin, my leg, my abdomen are on fire. And like I said, I'm 6'8". I was 240 pounds. I was covered in sweat. I was breathing heavy, and I still had 7 more steps to go. And I said to my family, I said, you know what? I got to sit down. And my daughter, this was hilarious. My daughter's like, absolutely not. Because she knew if I sat down, there was no way they were going to get me up.
You see, told you. This is now
Absolutely.
the whole family is a hero to me.
Absolutely. So
Keep
she
going,
literally,
please.
she grabbed my shirt from the front,
Unbelievable.
and my wife pushed from the back, and they got me up those 7 stairs. And when I talk to groups, I always ask people this question: who in your life is pushing or pulling you towards your goals? Or maybe even more importantly, who are you pushing and pulling toward their goals?
Yeah.
If I hadn't had my family, I'd be dead by now. I'm very lucky with my family. My mom was in Chicago with my brothers, and there wasn't much my mom could do other than pray and call and give me moral support and that. And she definitely did that, as did my brothers.
And give you love, the love.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The most important thing in the world, love.
Yeah. So now you are mentioning about the pain and the operation. What is happening to you after 2012? How many operations did you get, and how much did they remove?
So after the first 2 operations, I was put on a drug called interferon, which was designed to do nothing to the cancer, but kind of rev up my immune system to fight the disease. The problem with interferon is I gave myself these injections every week. And after the injection, I had basically the flu for 2 to 3 days after each injection. So imagine having the flu every week for almost 5 years.
That has to be weakening.
It was terrible. And literally at the end, the drug became so toxic to my body that I ended up in the intensive care unit with a fever of 108 degrees, which usually is not compatible with being alive.
How many years did it last?
It was 4 years and 7 months
So
almost 5 years that I was on this.
you went through this up and down constantly for all this time.
For almost 5 years. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the bad side. The good side, the cancer wasn't coming back. It had not come back.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2017, when I had to stop the interferon, of course, the cancer came back. And my only treatment option, in January of 2018, I had my left foot amputated.
Okay.
So then it came back again in 2019, and in April, during the middle of a global pandemic, I had my left leg amputated above the knee.
Okay.
So that's where I am now. Further testing found additional tumors in my lungs. So I've been on chemotherapy for that, but my oncologist is not optimistic that I'll be here by this time next year, which is fine. I know that sounds bad, but in all honesty, I am very much at peace.
I can hear it. Terry, I want to celebrate life here. You were diagnosed in 2012.
Right.
Today we're in 2020. Right. So it's 8 years. During this 8 years, you saw your daughter growing up. Your wife was next to you. Your mom is still there. You still have a family. What can you tell to all these people who just found out they just have cancer and they're completely stressed, scared, angry, and basically they don't know how to feel? What can you tell them?
I can tell you that however you're feeling, that's okay. If you're mad, that's fine. If you're like me, kind of like, how could this possibly, I did everything right. This can't be true. That's okay too. However you're feeling is okay. Don't think you've got to, Uncle Bob had cancer and he felt this way, or, my grandfather had cancer and he felt that way. No, however you're feeling, that's the way you can be feeling. But let me put some hope into this, because I have a very strong faith, and there may be people listening to you that don't have that. But I kind of look at it like, let me tell a quick story, because I think this really kind of illustrates.
Sorry, please do.
So I've always been a big fan of Westerns, cowboys and stuff like that. So in 1993, the movie Tombstone came out, and it starred Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday and Kurt Russell as Wyatt Earp. Now, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were two living, breathing human beings that actually walked on the face of the earth. They were not made up characters for the movie. And at the very end of the movie, the two men are talking to each other. Doc Holliday is actually dying of tuberculosis in a sanitarium in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. And Wyatt, who was a lawman, is destitute. He has no money, has no job, has no prospects for a job. So he comes every day, and he and Doc play cards to kind of pass the time. So at this scene, I think, is so powerful. And so they're talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, you know what? When I was younger, I was in love with my cousin, but she joined a convent over the affair, but she was all I ever wanted. And he looks at Wyatt and he says, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt looks at him and says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal, there's just life, and get on with living yours. And I think that's such a powerful story, because, would I like to not have cancer? Oh God, you bet I would. You bet I would not have liked to have gone through this for, almost 9 years now. I wish I hadn't put my family through it. But these are the cards that I've been dealt, and I have to play those cards. If you have cancer, if you have a chronic illness, a terminal disease, how you approach it is how your mind's going to wrap around it. I always tell people, if you can take that pain and suffering and you can turn it inside into you and use it to make you tougher and stronger and more resolute, your life will be so much better. Or you can sit there and you can whine and you can complain and you can say, oh, woe is me, but that's not going to do you any good.
Now, I have one more question before moving on to what you have done and what you have accomplished, because you have accomplished so much. So I would like to ask you, if you get into that mindset and you think of what is the reason for these 8 years of my life? What is your answer? What do you think life gave you, and what have you learned that you can bring to the next world maybe? What have you learned?
I think I'm a better person. I think I'm a more compassionate person. With whatever time I have left in this world, I want to put as much hope, as much faith, as much love back into it. I can't imagine, and again, I come from a situation where I believe in God. I realize people may not, but I can't imagine standing in the presence of our creator, whoever or whatever you believe that entity to be, and
Yes.
being unable to account for the gifts and the talents that I've been given that I didn't use to make the world a better place. And, it's the old saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yeah.
I think I've done that. And I have a Post-it note that's on my desk, and it has 3 sentences written on it. The first sentence says, control your mind or it will control you. The second sentence says, embrace the pain and the suffering and use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual. And the third sentence says, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. So I see that every day. And that's just, it's a very powerful little Post-it note. And that's kind of how I live my life. And that's what cancer has allowed me to do. Now, I only have one leg, so there are a lot of things I can't do. But I try to focus on the things that I can do instead of the things I can't.
Terry, how are you helping others? You said that you have faith. One of the mission when you have faith is to help others in this world. Something tells me you wrote a book. So why did you write a book, and how do you advertise that book in order to help others?
So I literally wrote the book between the time that I had my leg amputated, which was April 21st of this year, and the time that I started chemotherapy, which was about mid to late June. So in about 2.5, 3 months, I wrote this book. And it was really born out of a conversation, 2 conversations I had with 2 different individuals. So when I was a high school basketball coach, I had a point guard on the team who went to the University of Georgia. She and her boyfriend have recently moved to Denver, where I live now. And I sent her a text and I said, I'm really excited that you're living here. It's going to be fun for me to watch you find and live your purpose. And she came back and she's like, what do you think my purpose is? And I told her, I gave her a quote from Mark Twain, who said the 2 most important days of our lives are the day we're born and the day we figure out why. And I told her, I said, I don't know what your purpose is. That's something you have to search out. That's something you have to lead with your heart to find. But I told her, I said, some people know right away, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be whatever. And some people spend their whole life searching for their purpose. And I told her about Colonel Sanders, who started Kentucky Fried Chicken. I said, he started that after he retired. He was in his 60s before he started that business. Now, I don't know if that was his purpose, but I kind of got a feeling that it might have been. So there was that conversation. And then I had a young man contact me on LinkedIn who said, what do you think are the things I need to know to not only be successful in my job, but to be successful in life? And I thought about it for a while. And one of the things I told him, I said, I think it's more important to live a life of significance as opposed to success. You can do both. But success is, I started a company. I am successful as a company, or I'm successful as a coach. Significance is I helped other people accomplish their goals, their dreams, their desires. But like I told him, I said, don't think about success, think about significance. So I came up with these 10 principles, and the book is called Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. And as I came up with these, I started to think, well, I've got a life story about that, or I know somebody who did, and I say this like I wrote the book. I physically wrote it, but I really kind of feel that God
helped you.
Kind of helped me. It's like, you're going to write this book. I'm going to tell you what to say, but you put it down on paper kind of thing. So it was inspired, I think, by something much bigger than me.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. And the fact that it took you 3 months to write it, that
Exactly.
has to be inspired. I mean, unless you're really, really good at, using.
And I'm not really, really good. So
that is really beautiful. There is something else that you're doing, is that blog, Motivational Check. Explain to me, first of all, why that name? And second of all, what are you trying to accomplish with it?
So when I was in the Cincinnati Police Academy, we had a defensive tactics instructor that would make us bring photographs of the people that we loved the most to class. And when he was teaching us, ways to defend ourselves, we were to look at those people, because he reasoned that we would fight harder for people we loved than we would fight for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if we were having a bad day, or we were, doing push-ups or running or whatever, and somebody they're at the end of their rope, they could yell out motivational check. And the rest of us would respond with the number 84, because we were the 84th recruit class, just to let the person know, hey, yeah, we're hurting too, but we're here with you, and we're together. We're part of a team. So when I was thinking about putting a blog together, and when I was looking for a name, I thought motivational check would be a great name. So my purpose, literally, when I had my foot amputated, I had no goals. I had no job. I didn't have anything. And I would lay in bed at night, kind of looking at the ceiling saying, what do you want me to do, God? And I was literally hoping, that the clouds would open and the voice would come down. And there's an old joke that says, when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So I guess I'm glad God didn't talk to me. But, it was just one of those things, like you need to help people. So every day I put a thought for the day on there. It's very short. I put videos on there. I put stories on there. But whatever I put on there, it's short, because I realize people are busy. And so I just want to put as much hope, as much positivity, as much love back into the world as I can. And I think with the book and with the blog, I've been able to do that.
Now, going back to your life, I'm going to ask you to give me the 5 most memorable moments of your life, whether they're good or bad, but something that you will always keep in your heart. Think about it and give me 5 moments.
So I think the first one is my father dying. My dad died at 54. He was a very young man, of breast cancer, which was very rare at his time. So that was that whole time period where he was sick, probably number one. I was married prior to this, and it didn't work out. And I blame myself for that. So that's probably number 2. I won a national championship in 8th grade with my church basketball team. Love those guys. I mean, it was just super. So that's probably number 3. Number 4 is, I want to say, certainly the day I married my wife, and absolutely the day our daughter was born, are in that top 5. So I'm probably going to give you 6.
Give me 6.
So, let's give you 6. I mean, I was so lucky to have my wife agree to marry. And like I said, there was a time when I didn't think I wanted to be a parent.
Again, it's about putting yourself into somebody else and the attention.
It is. It really, when I was a policeman, I worked nights.
All about it.
I always made the priority of my family. So, I mean, there were nights I went to work, with 2 or 3 hours of sleep because my daughter had something at her school, but I always wanted to be there for our daughter. And, that was incredibly amazing. And the day she walked across the stage at the United States Air Force Academy, got her diploma, and shook hands with the President of the United States, I mean, I couldn't have been more proud. My wife and I, we were over the moon for that one.
That's unbelievable. Number 6. Give me 6.
Well, so her graduation from college, I think, would be 6.
So basically the reason why I was asking you the question is cancer part of it, or if you are seeing all these memories, as the most important. And I can see that your life is so full with or without cancer, that you have lived everything to the fullest. Really, it's unbelievable.
It is. I mean, when I die, I want to leave it all on the table. I want to say that I did what I could. And, when I found out this last situation, I know people are going to think this is defeatist, but literally my wife and I went to the mortuary, we went to the cemetery. I mean, all my funeral arrangements are made. I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up.
No.
But I just wanted to give that gift to my family. It's like, you know what? When I do go, you make one call and it's all taken care of. You don't have to deal with all the stress of me dying. And then, oh yeah, now I've got to plan the funeral and do all that stuff. My wife and I have done all that. We're going to be together. We picked a mausoleum. We're going to be in the wall. So I always, it's like, where are you going to, I'm being the wall, I'm going to be in the wall. So I am not afraid. I'm actually kind of excited to see what's beyond this life,
Yeah, life has prepared you for it. So, but I mean, I don't want to be morbid or anything.
No.
And I don't want people to think we are, because that's not what it is. But with your book, with your blog, with your family, with your daughter, you will live forever. You will be here forever with, I'm sure, all these people that you have touched by your positive mind. It really is unbelievable. So now you see, I'm now turning on to my audience, and you see why, to me, you are a hero, survivor, fighter, and a mentor. So thank you so much for everything. I really, really appreciate this moment. And can I ask you, if there is someone in my audience who is trying to reach out, is there a way, maybe from your blog, where people can contact you? Is there something that you could do?
Absolutely. I have. It's been amazing the number of people who have reached out from the book or other podcasts that I've done. I'm more than happy to talk to you. So the blog is motivationalcheck.com. And you can get to me through that. You can also send me an email through motivationalcheck@aol.com. And I'll respond to every email. I will respond to you. And if you have a question, or if you just want to talk, I mean, I'm a big talker, you've heard, but I'm also a pretty good listener. So if you want to talk about something, if you're scared, you want to cry, you want to yell, I got no problem with any of that.
I will put all your information on the transcript, so it would be very easy for people, just in case someone wants to talk about their hardship.
Sure.
And again, what I'm going to take about this interview is, it is okay to have feelings, whatever these feelings are. So this is something that I'm going to walk away with.
Great. And that's true. However you're feeling, go with that. But I wouldn't stay in that dark place, because like you said, you asked me the top 5 things. I didn't list cancer, because, cancer doesn't define who I am. I define that. And cancer is just part of my life right now. I mean, just like I have, my hair's going gray. That's who I am.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. I really, really appreciate this moment that you're giving us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let me leave you with the definition of success that Coach John Wooden at UCLA said a long time ago. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing that you did the best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. And I think if we all lived up to that definition, regardless of what we believe or where we're going after this, I think that's a pretty good way to live your life. So, Kathy, thank you very much for allowing me to come on your podcast. And I hope your audience got something positive out of this.
I know we will. And if we can touch one person, that's it. That's already a huge success.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're doing it today. Thank you, Terry. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's it for today. If you are interested in participating in one of our future recordings, if you have questions, or if you would like to share your adventure with us, please do contact me at bbonclody@gmail.com. Stay tuned for our next episode, and always remember to be kind to each other. Thank you, Terry. You're such an inspiration to us all.
You're welcome.